Hello and welcome to Leash Dad's podcast. Tonight we have our guest and solo Jared. Shaun, say hello.
Hello.
We are two Leash Dads that get together to discuss our everyday lives every once in a blue moon while we battle our everyday lives, of course. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm okay. A little bit burnt out still. Our dear friend Justin is also dealing with some daddy issues. Well, no, not daddy issues, but issues being being a busy dad. He's gonna love that one when he edits this. Oh, too funny. But no, it's just gonna be us two tonight. And tonight we're talking a little bit about a subject that's near and dear to my heart, and that is whether or not you should be introducing your kids to a religion when there are so many out there that everybody thinks they're right, but they really have no proof that they're right. So let's start out with since the last time we talked, you didn't have any contact with your children. I heard that's changed, huh?
Yeah, it has. So I got in contact with Alex. He reached out. That's my youngest son for the audience.
Okay,
But,
awesome.
But yeah, I haven't talked to them in. Well, my youngest Alex would have been over a year, and then my oldest almost a year. Yeah. For that, because it's, without going into too much detail, it's just to respect boundaries. Going there,
Of course.
it's their choice. I've reached out several times for a long time, and they just weren't ready to have a conversation. So Alex, the youngest, he reached out one day when I was on TikTok streaming on video games, and him and his friends have been coming on every now and then, checking in, saying hey. Told me, you look great, nice haircut. I cut my own hair, like all this other stuff.
I saw that. It looks great.
Thank you. And then they told me about basketball, and so they were telling me about how Alex scored over 20 points and dunked on a kid. So, like I said,
Wow.
I know we talked before a little bit, but it's amazing. Like outside of the other stuff that he's got going on, both the boys seem to be struggling with some teenage girl issues. But I let them know that whenever they're ready to have conversations, a dad knows a thing about that a little bit, and so I'm hoping, one day that once they build that trust and I can have that trust again, right? I'm more than happy to help them, support them. So, but in the meantime, I'm really excited. They reached out, so it's a step.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is so good.
Yep.
So, this week has been really busy. I'm finally getting the help I need at my 9 to 5. So things are finally picking up there. Very happy. Waiting 3 years for progress in that department, and it's finally happened. So I had a really good day today because yesterday was the final decision of the progress, and so today I was a new person. Like, can't even describe it a different way. Jubilant, very pleased. Even meetings I was participating because I felt I mattered, which is a key thing for your employees, folks, to make them feel they're mattered.
Absolutely.
They matter.
Yeah, there seems to be a correlation between morale and and feeling valued.
No, really? Seems like common sense, but as much as we, as society, we joke and we get depressed about that stuff. The managers, the corporation, they're all going through similar personal stuff. They're all busy too. On an empathy side, they're not constantly worried and focused about you and your other coworkers. I'm sure they have other stuff going on. So,
True.
A little bit of peace right there, but
yeah, everybody's in their own reality tunnel a little bit.
Oh, for sure, and it's kind of selfish for us, or for me mainly, to sit here and think, well, why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they listening to me? Me. well, it's not really about me and my needs. It's about the needs of the customers and the corporation. So
Absolutely.
whatever.
So you said 3 years though.
Yeah, 3-year anniversary last week
Awesome.
of
Congratulations.
joining the company. Yeah, came out of a 8-year, well, almost 9-year relationship with a company, and I left to for monetary reasons. So
Okay.
it was pretty drastic. I gained 15% of my income just by switching. So
Wow.
I would have never gotten that staying at the one place. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, some place I've ran into that in some places too with the workplace. Yeah, like they're so limited. They say budget, 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 and it's
Okay,
okay.
well then
See you later.
I'm gonna find
Like,
something else. Yep, exactly.
they say you're replaceable. I'm like, yeah, so is a job. You know,
Yep.
like thanks, thanks for the opportunity. You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. I think it all started when I was 18 and I worked at a golf course, and I had been there for 3 years. At that point, I asked for a 10-cent. I was making minimum wage 3 years, and I asked them for a 10-cent raise. He said no. I said bye.
that's insane. 10 cents.
Yep, a dime, just a dime. That's all I'm looking for, a dime.
Reminds me
Nope,
of
can't
Tony
do it.
Hopper
All
and
right,
Jim Croce. Can I
see
get
ya.
it?
Yep. But enough about that. A little bit of a backstory and why this is so near and dear of a topic to me is that during my parents' divorce, one parent decided to stay Lutheran, and the other parent decided to go more on the Catholic side. And historically, my mother's family has always been Lutheran, and my father's family has always been Catholic. But during their marriage, they got married in a Lutheran church. So I think it was a little bit of a give and take situation there, where I think at least they were going to church was kind of the thing, and there wasn't really much argument. So, when they split, I was still expected to go to, both churches. And as I grew up, they were still pretty adamant about the Sunday school, the confirmation, the first communion, and all that other stuff in both households. So one weekend I would be in Sunday school at the Lutheran church, and the other weekend I'd be at the Catholic church. Well, I dare not say that I was attending another church or I was in another religion, attending another religion, because boy, did I get bullied for that shit. Oh man, did I get it. Mainly from the Lutheran church. Those kids just were terrible to me, knowing that I was going somewhere else. And well, they were taught that too, that this is their religion. It is the most truth in their eyes, and any other religion is bullshit. And that is the way I was brought up. That, Christianity is the only truth, and the Bible is the word of God. It's actual nonfiction in their eyes.
Yeah.
And I started questioning it at a really young age. And it all started because I was getting two sides of the same story. Now it wasn't as drastic as like Judaism and Christianity, or no, Judaism is kind of Christian, isn't it? No, but it wasn't polar opposites. So it was super confusing, and so I started asking a lot of questions in Sunday school to these teachers, and as well as the pastor and or priest.
Okay.
And again, they would just come to me and say, well, this is what we believe, this is what we want you to believe, and this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I felt like I wasn't able to question these things. And it came to so long story short, I did get my first communion in a Catholic church, and I was confirmed in my Lutheran church. So I stayed in it till about 13, 12, and then I was at a confirmation class a couple weeks for the Catholic school, and this is one of those nights too where the bullying got so bad, and I went to the teacher. Like, they locked me in like a storage room in the basement of the church, like, because they convinced me that there was some sort of soda machine down there that was on break or whatever, and they ended up locking me down there for a joke. And when I came to the teacher to tell him what happened, well, I didn't see it. It didn't happen. I didn't see that. No one told me that. And then I got my father involved, and she, the teacher told him the same thing. I didn't see anything. I don't know what he's talking about. So then I wasn't believed. And then I said, Dad, I'm not going to that place anymore. And I think, he finally just gave in, and that was it. I still went to church every once in a while, but that was it. I never pursued it after that.
Gotcha.
What about
So
you? What did you grow up with?
I'm so sorry that you had that experience, man.
Yeah, well,
I grew up with different ones, right? So it's weird, dude. Like, I don't even know where to begin with it. So, like, my very first experience, like, that I have embedded into my being. I don't know if we've had this conversation or if I said this before, but I remember, like, floating into my body. That's my very first memory. And whatever that was, like, was so core to me that it shaped my, like, questioning of, like, what is this? What should I do? Blah, blah, blah. And I had that, like you said, at a very young age, that questioning, that curiosity.
mm-hmm.
And like in some cultures, that's fostered, right? Like it's guide, like people, there's guides, like spiritual guides, and like like the Indian culture, they guide you and stuff like that. And you have vision quests and things like that. Like all this other stuff, we're not
Yeah.
supposed to do that shit. And like in the Christian, I grew up with Christianity, but it was more Protestant. And
Okay.
I still don't really know like the different denominations and all that stuff, right? For me, um, but I know that on one hand, like the way that I was brought up as a kid, like it was kind of taught as like these sort of fairy tales, like Mother Goose fairy tales, right? And then as I started getting older, that's kind of how it is with even with just education as a whole. Like I learned about Christopher Columbus in high school, and then when you go to college, you learn a little bit more about Christopher Columbus, right? It's just a very different story.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing happened with me with the Bible, and then when I go to college, and I went to a private Christian school, and I was trying to just find I was like still on this idea that God is an external thing, right? Thinking that
Yeah.
God is this external force. It's something that you have to
Yep.
seek. You're a seeker,
Yes.
right? And so for me, I was always people would keep saying that. I would meet people every now and then. Oh, you're a seeker too, aren't you? Right? Like they would validate that. I'm like, yeah, you too, right? So it's like cool, whatever. It's like it seemed like it was like sort of code, like you're in this sort of community, right, of seekers. And then
Right.
like everybody like so when you feeling like you're this part of a group, like it's cool to have that sort of community. And that's one thing that I valued about different religions and stuff like that, because that's a shared trait among different religions regardless of the religion, right? Like there's that
Mm-hmm.
aspect. But then like I didn't quite understand, like it got to the point with the baptism stuff. Like I started looking into, instead of Protestant, I got in contact with a friend. He was into Awanas. I don't know if you're familiar with Awanas, but Awanas is like this sort of, it's like a club, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but maybe it's a Midwest thing, or just Illinois, excuse me, because I know you're Midwest too. Um, but I know that it was like this sort of like Baptist club that I went to with a friend. He invited me to go to it because he was like trying to introduce me more to Christ too. And it was like this thing where I had to like memorize verses and stuff like that. It was almost like a boot camp, dude. And I didn't like that. had this really
No.
unusual feeling. So I stopped that immediately. And then I remember like when I was asking, like when I would try to have conversations with my grandparents about the Bible and stuff, my grandpa, he didn't care. He didn't give a shit, right? He was like, I don't believe in any of that until he got older. Like, and then all of a sudden something hit him and he's like, yeah, I think maybe, right? Like, you know, it was like after 50 for him. But I'm glad that it took him, you know, what people, I'm just happy if people find it, you know, you just celebrate it
Right.
more than like, oh yeah, it took you so long, right? So for me, I didn't know because I'm still curious too, right? And I'm just learning all these stories, and my grandma's introducing me to all these different stories. I popular ones that there were shows on TV and stuff. I can't remember the name of that one either, but it's like the guys that did like Clash of the Titans and shit, like that kind of format. It was unique.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
Yep.
like it's that era. I just it like to me it's like to me it seems like it's almost like our mythology, right? Like to me that's the way I kind of see it. It's like almost like a mythology, and it's all allegory for a lot of things. Like so many people take it so literal,
I
and
know.
that's what's frightening to me sometimes because like I'll meet people every now and then who would talk about if I ask things about the Old Testament, they're like, "Oh, we don't talk about the Old Testament. We're a New Testament now, right?" They get like that, and I'm like,
Yep.
wait. Why are we ignoring that entire thing? Isn't that also
They just
important?
shut it off.
Yeah, they completely shut it off. So like, I don't like that. That's the whole censoring thing, or like the whole,
Yes.
or they eliminate like the Book of Enoch out of it, right? And I tried to look into that a
Yes.
little bit more too. Like, I want to know. Like, nobody tells you why are you just like who decides what's canon and what's not, right? Like this is like somebody's like editing it like a comic book. Like, you know, and
Yeah. No. Preach, man. Preach.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
Yeah.
And so for me, like I didn't understand that more until I got into college. I went to like I said, private Christians college. I was again seeking God outside of myself, not knowing that for me people come to that discovery that it's everywhere, like everything, and everybody inside of you at all times. But we don't always feel that way, right?
Right.
So like, because we always think of ourselves so separate and human and limiting and all this other shit, right? So I like to me that like the stories that would like I love some of the stuff that the Bible teaches, like the Gospel of Thomas. I love Job. Like I related to Job so much in my turbulence of like kind of what you were describing a little bit with like relationships and stuff, or like that separation and death of your family and not know and
Hmm.
just having that little faith and then you still get rewarded for that faith. I don't like the idea of God fucking with you and making a bargain with Satan to make that happen to teach you a lesson. I don't like that, right? Like I don't agree with that, but I do agree that circumstances that happen in a way that's outside of your control. And I think that's a great lesson of faith to say, hey, despite whatever fucking happens, even if you get manipulated by the gods, keep the faith, right? Like,
Right.
right, right? Like maybe I don't know, but everybody has a different takeaway from that, right? So I just there's so many things like I had wondered like is God a narcissistic God? But like why does he scapegoat his children for generations when he's the one that planted the tree there and made it the apple of knowledge and all this other stuff if he's so God and powerful, and didn't he see that coming? Right? Like like shit like that, right? So for me, that's what got me into more Eastern philosophy. And I started going into more like Buddha, and I fell in love with Buddhism a lot because of the fact that like one, it's like they have many gods, but they're like all creative representations and aspects
Right.
of your human character, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
it. And some people fear it so much that they say like, oh, that's such a danger. They believe in this and many gods and stuff like that. And I'm like, that they're just saying that this is all you, right? And you can celebrate. If you need strength, call upon this God. or if you need strength in this area of your life, call upon this God. And they speak to you in ways, right? So it's just, I think that for me, on that side of it, it's more beautiful than this idea of where I was brought up that you need to be afraid. You need to be like, if you go out of obedience, you and your friends are going to burn in hell. Or like, you
Yeah, I
spend,
hate that.
you have to have this complete responsibility of if you don't save them, you and your friends are gonna die, and you're gonna go to hell for that. I didn't like that. It's like, wait, that sounds like a horrible torture in a prison, right? So like
Well,
for
that's what
me,
it is.
like yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like for me, that like that taught me to be more afraid of that religion and not be so convinced that there's evidence that this God that is supposed to be all loving is all loving, right? Either they're not all powerful or they're not all loving. They're powerful, but they're not all loving. That's what it taught me, and that's I didn't like that. So for me, I got to the point where it's like now there's more liberation in the fact that I just rather than trying to intellectualize it and rationalize it, like I meditate and I try to feel it here, just whatever that is in my being rather. And if I feel connected, I feel that that's what I feel without like
Yeah,
labeling it and putting a huge book behind it, like um and for me if that's called love, then that's love, I guess.
right.
But I don't know, that's for me, that's what I can come to the conclusion with my life. Like it took me a long time to get there, but that's what I mean. Like I don't like the religious thing, the saying, hey, I'm religious. But I think if enough people believe in that, it inevitably creates religion, right? So you know what I
Yep,
mean? Like it just
yep.
creates it by extension, by
It's like
community.
the definition: a group of people believe the same thing. It's a religion.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You know what I mean? So like if you get enough people, then you got it. So it's like
Right.
um
Or a cult. Dun
yeah,
dun dun.
well, yeah, right, or something like that. So it could be that. But that's the other thing too. Like for me, I found like they say don't teach like celebrating certain false idols, right? But that's what I meant. Like when I grew up, you're taught that it's white Jesus, right? And for
No,
me,
yeah.
like I'm
Blue eyed,
okay.
you know.
Exactly, I'm okay with that. My Jesus isn't Thor, right? I'm okay with that. Like but some people
Yeah.
they have a heart attack that Jesus isn't Thor, you know. Um, like, but that's what I'm just saying. Like, I'm okay if he's got the olive skin, and if we're from Africa, if we all came from Mesopotamia, I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay. So
Yeah.
it's just like, same thing with the whole label things, like the white black thing. I don't. For me, that's a label on a water bottle, and like,
It's irrelevant.
yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
What the
Like,
hell does it matter?
yeah,
You know?
it's love, dude. Like, I just
Right.
want to love. And if we're just souls, like let's just see each other for the souls that we are.
Right.
But like
Yeah.
they don't really teach that because, like I said, for me, it's not. I know that not every Christian household was my Christian household, right? But I know that my Christian household was an abomination of a Christian household, right?
No.
It wasn't a true representation of what a Christian values would be. And that's where
Right.
I got turned off of Christianity until I got older. It wasn't until I got older and met more true Christians that I saw, okay, now I see a little bit of like what you guys are getting at, right? So I don't like poo poo on the Bible, right? Like I don't poo poo and say, hey, this is all hogwash, right? Some of it to me is like powerful magic. But I know that for a lot of other people, they just think it like is like we were saying, it should just be completely disregarded, discarded, devalued, burned even. And it teaches so many
Well,
powerful lessons of life.
yeah, I
And it
I don't
leads,
want to I don't want to come across that I thought that the Bible is nonsense, cuz it's not.
yeah,
What I don't agree with is people thinking it as nonfiction and that these actually are stories that it's a historical document. That it is not. It is a story, and this is my belief. It is a story, a bunch of stories that teach you a way of life, of love, empathy, and compassion for other human beings and other life on this journey that we call life.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not a historical, people, well, where, is, I guess we can call it like the specific thing of like the ark. Okay, yes, let's get into this just a little bit real quick. There have been in every religion, mostly there has been a huge giant flood that has recreated or destroyed a group of humans and animals and everything else and started over, right?
yeah.
um I can't think of the specific religions, but it's talked about all over that there are a bunch of religions that have this massive flood, and and for the Christians, it's Noah and the ark.
Mhm.
Well, people say, well, where is it? If the thing is so damn big, where is the ark? Well, for one, it was how many damn years ago, and it was made of wood. I doubt you're going to find it. And if you are, it probably is in the ocean somewhere. you know
Sure.
so it's a fantastic collection of stories that I hope to someday read. What I would like to find, and I am kind of researching this off and on throughout my life, is a very early on example of the book, because as you mentioned, there's been sections removed,
Mhm.
it has been translated and tweaked and twisted to meet other people's religion or like religious expectations. Like, remove the Old Testament, we're only doing the New Testament. Well, can we just get an example of the original, like one of the most original ones we can find, and read that to see what it says, instead of a modern one that's been so twisted? Like, is that out there? Do you know?
Um, I mean, they have. I think that they do have the original Hebrew Bible. Um,
It'd be Hebrew then. Okay.
yeah, you would have to learn Hebrew. Um,
Damn.
so yeah,
I'm
you would
not doing that.
have, so they have the original Hebrew Bible. I don't know like where you would be able to get a copy of that off the top of my head, unfortunately. But then I know that they have like translations of
Some
different.
sort of synagogue.
Yeah, they have the other translations too of like the Quran and Torah, which also talk
Yeah.
they talk about Jesus too, but Jesus was an apostle. They don't
Right.
they believe in Muhammad, not Jesus as their savior, right? So like he was significant, but they don't accept him as Lord type of thing, right? Like Christians do. So I think that's interesting that there's continuity in two separate religions that Jesus did exist in a way, but under different pretexts, like or different context,
Right.
right? So like that's the stuff
That's
that
what.
I find fascinating,
Yes. Me
right?
too.
That allows me to think, okay, maybe it's not just one way of life, right? Like maybe it's like maybe it was at one point and then it created it's like a tree, like it just
Yep.
like and we're just on a branch, right? And we're just thinking, hey, this is it, right? But like the whole tree is still waiting for us to reach it, right? Like so that's and there's so much money and effort spent in erasing that I
Yeah.
that's why I think that's why I think it's so important. Like people should why isn't it the standard that everybody has the original Bible then? Like why did we have to have these interpretations outside of order? Like King James obviously he wanted an abridged version, right? But people love King
Yeah.
James version. And it's like, wait a second, you prefer a censored version. That's that's your preference, right? So for me, that's what I'm saying. Like so many people will rather have that, but for me, that's like I feel like there's so much elements of history missing that like could be true to our identity that's not being told, right? So for me, that's where I'm
Right.
like, oh shit, I want to go down this rabbit hole. Where does it go? Where can it take me? What do these people know that they don't want us to know? Right? That's where I go.
Yeah. There.
So
there needs to be more people pushing for that. There's got to be more out there. You look at how old the earth is and how many civilizations there have been just in recorded history alone, and you're telling me that you're going to dedicate your entire belief in life on some other human's word that they think is right?
Yeah.
What about all the other civilizations in the past? Have they all been wrong? Are you really saying that they're all wrong and you're right? Like, why this the people I feel are so close minded about that stuff, and like they have this urgent need to be right, and they don't question. There's not enough hunt for more knowledge out there.
Yeah.
Like so I began to question a lot more when I got into college, and I took one of the religions. It went over Buddhist. It went over what's the Middle Eastern one? Can't
Islam.
think of it now. Yeah, Islam. Yeah.
Okay.
So I studied all these other religions, and millions of people believe that that's the truth. Well, who am I to say that my religion is the truth? I can't say
Right.
that, and I won't say that.
That's how I
I
feel.
won't.
Yeah. That's how,
So
that's
really,
like the point. I don't know what to really believe.
right?
The older I get, the less I like. The older I get, the more I know, the less I know. Like kind of deal, right? It's a weird paradox, dude. Like I can't put into words what it really is, and it's hard for me to be convinced that other people, like you said, know for sure. That's that's what I mean. Like I don't
Yeah,
know. Like I don't know how. Like you
yeah.
could know for sure, for sure.
Well, I don't think you really can unless you get like really into the astral projection and spiritual. I
Yeah,
mean, I
right.
don't know how far much I believe into that myself either,
You don't
because I
you don't
have
believe in
not.
mental projection?
Well, I haven't personally done it. I have
Oh,
not
okay.
personally gotten that far.
Gotcha.
So it's not that I don't believe. It's just that I am naturally skeptical about it.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay to be skeptical. I know that, like for me, I personally have experienced it, but it's okay to have the skepticism. Um, yeah, it's tough. It's weird because it's scary. You don't think that you can, but you can. So, like,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
there's ways,
I've
yeah, there's ways that, like, if you're curious enough, if you want to go down that road, you can refine that ability because it's a skill, but you don't have to, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like for me, I didn't know that there was a thing, but that for me, that was one of the things I had to discover from my personal journey. Because, like I said, I remember specifically my core memory was me flying into my body. So for me,
yep.
I was like, okay, if we can do that, what the hell is that? Can we still do
Right.
that? I remember as a kid, I was able to do that at will. At some point after 7 or 8, I lost that ability, and I
Oh,
that and so a lot of my personal journey with religion was not just to connect with God, but to try to figure out what was that and how can I reconnect to that. Um, and to this day, like I don't I struggle with recalling my dreams. I still
yeah.
it's so bad. Like I haven't remembered really any of my dreams for over 2 decades. So like some people are like I used to be really super excited to go to bed because I'm like, yes, I'm going to this dimension, right? And I'm going to go
Hmm.
do these things and fly and do all these things, instantaneous manifestation, yes, right? But when you get here, you find out that it's slow and not fun and boring and grueling and painful, and it's like, but I want to go back. I want to go do that,
Yeah.
right? Like, and so like that, I can see why and how that could have got addicting for me as a kid. Not wanting to just experience life the way that life is, really truly, and just be escaping into dreamland all the time, right? Um,
Right.
so in a way, like I'm kind of thankful, but at the same time, I'm resentful Because I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to experience that place again, right? So that's where.
Right.
So for me, it wasn't just Christianity. For me, my road early started with getting into a lot of Gnosticism and esoteric stuff. Like
Hmm.
when I was a teenager, and that was really taboo to talk about, especially as a Christian. So that's for me. It was hard to make friends and connect with a lot of people at that time as a teenager in the 90s because like either you were a Jesus freak if you talked about God, you weren't cool if you weren't emo, right?
Yeah.
Or you had to be a prep or you had to fit into all these other cliques, right? Or and for me, like again, just trying to figure out who the hell I was, where to belong and all that stuff. Like you just try to figure out like who is your people, right? And eventually I found out like, okay, I'm part of the group that considers themselves the outcasts, right? Like,
Yeah.
the back
Oh,
of the
I
bus,
get. Yeah.
the back of the bus kids, the kids that are,
Yep.
questioning, but they're not supposed to question, or they're the ones that are the problem childs, right? Because they're too busy not just obeying, right?
Right.
So like it's just it was that kind of thing, and for me, I didn't get to talk about this kind of cool stuff until after college. That's when things start getting fascinating because they started having more open minds and debates. And I met one of the guys I talked to. He actually got to do exorcisms. Like he was a part of exorcism.
Dang.
But like for me, like I didn't know much about that, but I had some paranormal stuff going on, and I had questioned him about that. And so I was like, bro, like this is fascinating. Do you really do this? So I never experienced that, but he was like dead set. He's like, I'm trained in this. I'm like, oh, well then. So like,
Wow.
yeah. So like, you know, I there's so much possibility in all that other stuff. Even that it draws a lot of skepticism, right? Ghosts and paranormal shit. But for me, like I can't. I've had so much experience in my life that I'm like I can't. If I think it exists at this point,
Right.
like,
Right.
like it's just I don't know, man. Like, so going back to the religion though, that I think all because of all that stuff happening, that gave me even more evidence that there's so much that I can't fathom and comprehend, that there has to be a creator out there that does at some point, or at least I like, because I don't know. Like, I don't know what the hell would have created all this. I know that a lot of people still think that this is like a simulation thing. I don't quite agree with that. I think that that's a lot of gaslighting, and I think a lot of people are trying to make that a reality, honestly, to put us in this sort of like Dyson sphere. But I I really worry about that.
Well, and the way I think about it, to branch off of that topic, is that what so the system, the simulation, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, that most of I'm just going to blanket statement America here, and forgive me, comment, I don't care if you're listening to this, whatever. But the people who do not question, the people who follow and do what they're supposed to do what they're taught, they vote for either one party or the other party and don't ever question another one. They are in a simulation. You and me, who question and are searching for the meaning of life, as well as love, happiness, and peace for us, for ourselves and our family, we are branching out of that. So our lives are not in that simulation because we do not conform to everybody else. We never have.
Yeah.
So their lives are simulated the way that the government or the powers that be want it to be.
Hmm.
But us, who would easily throw it away if we had $500,000 in the bank and could move wherever the hell we wanted to, we would. I
Right.
mean,
Sure.
I know I would be so far gone, you wouldn't even
Yeah.
be funny.
I'm with you there, man.
So in that sense, you have to step out of doing what you're told. Step out of thinking what you're told to think and look at life as something beautiful and full of love. That is not a simulation.
Hmm. I like that. I like that a lot. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I came up with that one about a month ago when I realized, is this really a simulation? Well, for some it is. For me, no, it's not, because I'm in control of my own life. And if I ever broke free with the way you can only break free, which is money, or, breaking the law, which puts you and your family in danger, this isn't a simulation for me.
Right.
I'm still a part of it because I have to be to support my growing kids, but but I'm aware of that.
Right.
Other people aren't,
Yeah, gotcha. That makes sense. That's the Truman Show type of shit, right? Like you are aware that, you become self-aware and self-evident that,
Yep.
this box has been designed for you, basically. Yeah, but it's a man-made
Yeah.
box. It's not like the universe created the box for you. Like man came
Right.
along and created that box.
Yep.
So like,
Yep.
yeah, that's how I feel about it too. Somebody like I was something was kind of fascinating me too. Like something came up, and I don't know how true it is, but do you know like Carl Sagan?
Mm-hmm.
So like,
Pale blue dot.
so they're talking about like all this UFO stuff that's coming out, right?
Yeah.
And that's a whole nother topic for a different time, I think. But I'm very curious about like he mentioned something about like a super top classified document that was like this thick about religion. It was specifically about religion and these other entities or whatever, and they say that we have to take care of our bodies, and they call our bodies containers. And
Okay.
that's the specific verbiage that he said was like he found was in this document, and was like supposedly like deeply concerned why they're so like these beings or whatever are so obsessed with us and why they call us containers. He didn't know at the time of like that him talking about it why and what that meant, but it left him with this uncanny feeling and uncomfortable feeling, right? And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
like that only came into my experience like maybe 2 days ago, and I ever since that came into my experience, I can't shake it, right? So I'm like, now I'm on this rabbit hole with the curiosity with like, what does that mean? You know
You'll
what I
have to
mean?
share
Like,
that with me. You'll have to share that after this.
yeah, yeah,
I'm curious now.
yeah. So yeah, because I'm down this rabbit hole. Like I'm really into like Monroe Institute stuff, or I don't know if you've ever heard of Abraham Hicks or
Yep.
Neville Goddard. Like
Yep.
I got into a lot of their stuff. Somebody else recommended me to take a look at this book called A Journey of Souls, and I was going to look into that. And then
I read a bunch of Dolores Cannon stuff. I don't know if you know her or not.
I've heard of her, but I haven't read any of her stuff. What do you think of her?
Well, we're gonna have to wrap this up kind of soon here, but I, I, it resonated so much with, because at the time when I found her, I was in search of life after death, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usual, typical thing people think about, but what she described was it just felt so true and so yes that I actually ended up getting one of her books on 3 waves of volunteers and the cycle for the new earth. Now, whether I believe that or not is another story, because I'm, again, naturally skeptical. But her take on the soul and what its journey is before and after life is incredible. Long story short, life is nothing but a way for your soul to learn how to be more godly, I guess. More just it's a learning opportunity
Yeah.
for your being. And it doesn't stop after this life. You don't end.
Gotcha.
And that felt so heartwarming to me to know that, and like I said, it just resonated to my core that I don't end, and this personality, this person inside me continues and has been a part of many other things in the past.
Yeah. Have you had any experiences remembering or recalling any past life stuff?
Oh God, yeah.
You have?
Oh, since I was a kid. Oh shit, yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
See, for me, I haven't. I don't. Well, I can't say I have, but I don't think I can recall. But I know that there's a lot
I
of people that have.
mean, not to the extent of like visions and seeing it,
Uh-huh.
but just the random shit in my childhood that I just gravitated to for no reason whatsoever that I cannot explain to this day. For example, ancient Egypt. Never understood why I was so obsessed with it at like the age of 6.
Same.
Like I was obsessed with mummies and everything else, and I still ancient Egypt is one of my most curious things I would love to just learn about all day long.
I always want
But
to.
another is like industrial revolution, smokestacks, factories. I've always just been enamored since I was a young child about just the awe of the industrial revolution and like the Roaring Twenties. Um, I never got into war. I never got into like the 50s. Never got into like the pre-industrial revolution, but just mainly the Egyptians. Never got into Roman stuff either, but it's just that the certain sections of time that I am constantly interested in and constantly popping in my brain every day that I believe I have some sort of tie to that era.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so you feel the same? I mean, you
I feel the same
right?
with the Egypt for sure, because
Yeah.
that was another core experience I had when I was a kid too. That I remember specifically like going out of my body and then teleporting and flying above Egypt, what appeared to be Giza. And I remember the sensation of the sand and like what that felt like, but I don't know why. I don't know why I saw that.
Exactly.
I don't know why I suddenly was there and I was supposed to see that. I don't know. But all I know is that there seems to be, like, I know that for me, there was this, like, just knowing, like that gnosis of this feels familiar,
Yep.
right? And this
Yep.
feels like this is calling to me in some sort of way. But even though I don't know what that is, that feeling is there, right? So to this day, that's still there. I don't, and I still can't explain like what that is, but like I would still love to eventually like figure that, like either A, actually go there and maybe figure out
Oh,
if there was some sort
yes.
of actual heritage there or some sort of thing that maybe is significant that I should see, or like if there's a way for my spirit to go there through the astral projection method, like we were talking about, right? Like
Nah.
experience that again.
We
And
need to go. We just need to go.
right,
Okay.
yes,
You and me. We're
yes.
going.
So either way, but yeah, I've definitely had that feeling. But that was, again, it wasn't. It was before I was 6. I want to say I was about 4 or 5. Yeah, and then I stopped experiencing a lot of that stuff, like I said, after 7 or 8. So, but I didn't figure out I
All
could
right.
fly until after 6.
Oh, okay.
But
Yeah, you got to get that back somehow.
that'd be awesome. That'd be
Ugh,
awesome. So,
seems like
but
a
I
lot of
know that.
work
But
though.
even I already know that if I don't experience it here, if I pass away, that's where I'm going. So that's,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's for me. I like, not to go into another topic because that's a separate tangent for another time. But my first experience with LSD helped me reconnect with that too. Like when I took LSD
Oh
just to do a self experimentation, that for me was also just used as a tool. You don't use it as a party drug. And for me, I was trying
no,
to figure out
it's a
again like a
tool.
spirituality aspect about it too. Because some people go for ayahuasca and things like that, right? But for me, I was like, okay, what is this? Right? Want to experience it. And for me, that allowed me to experience that familiar feeling that, like, okay, what happened to me as a kid did in fact happen. Like that sort of memories of the like leaving my body and being able to do it at will and stuff like that. A lot of that started like reconnecting and coming back. So
Okay.
so that's for me, like when I got to re-experience that, that was like, okay, that's when like I started going through all like my dark night of the soul shit,
Oh.
ironically. And that's when like I
Ugh.
started waking up to the realization of like kind of what you're going through right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
With my partner and everything. Like it changed
Mm-hmm.
everything. It changed everything for me because I couldn't see anything the same anymore. Like that's like what snapped me out of everything, like whatever it was. So it like I don't want to attribute that entirely, that like that drug to, you know, my awakening. It certainly was a catalyst, but
It helped though, you know,
that's what I'm saying. It was a
it
hell. It gave me a push.
accelerated it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't say like that's something that I would encourage people to do. I wouldn't ever
No.
encourage people to go that way. I would encourage people, like, if they could just go a different route with like meditation or things like that, if possible.
Right.
But you know, it's to each their own. Like for me, I it just taught me so much about myself there. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And the one thing before you said you wanted to wrap it up, I wanted to ask you, because of one of the other points that you said you wanted to talk about is like introducing this to your children. Um, like
I'm gonna wait.
you want to wait? Okay, I'm okay
Well,
with
no, I'm gonna wait for. I'm gonna wait to. I want them to be curious enough to ask my beliefs. I'm not gonna force my beliefs onto them.
got it.
If they have a question, if they have a question, and
Yeah,
this is for my teenage stepson as well, if they have a question about something, I'm going to answer it in my belief and let them know that it's an open conversation. You can believe what you want, but this is what I believe. Because I was never like, I think I might have been told that by my grandmother who introduced me to the spiritual side of being alive. But I was never given that freedom from my parents that you can believe what you want to believe, because I was supposed to be a Catholic. I was supposed to be, you know, a Christian.
yeah,
So and to the extreme that my parents wanted me to be a priest. That's how bad it was. Like
gotcha.
I in a way I could see myself doing that, but only for like a few years, because then again my curiosity and my questioning would get in the way, and then I'll be done. You know,
Yeah, sure.
father my ass, I'm out of here. But no, I mean, I really think, and this is the ending here, um, that you give your kids the freedom to believe what they want and let them come into it themselves,
Yeah,
especially at a young age when they don't even understand the basics of life. Don't complicate things with "you're going to hell if you lie." You're going to burn in hell for lying about stealing that piece of candy.
yeah,
When
right.
you die, you're going to be burning in hell. That's just so wrong. Why would you do that? You know, teaching them a lesson that once you end this world, you're going to pay for it. That's not love. That's
Yeah,
not love. And it's actually kind of abuse,
yeah.
if I'm being so bold.
I would see it that way too.
What
At that point, yeah.
what do you what would you have you ever had a conversation with your kids about a certain religion?
Not really certain religions, and you know, as you know, they're not really around for me to have more of that
Right.
conversation,
But
right? So,
like before, yeah.
yeah, before, I would always give them the choice to if they wanted to come to church or not when I would go to church,
Okay.
right? Because
Yeah.
I knew that Rachel, she definitely was atheist,
Okay.
So for me,
So is
that's
my
another.
wife.
Right. So that's another thing I ended up finding out. I didn't learn until later that would be a conflict for us, right? Because once I found out that for me, it's so hard to be working it out with somebody who doesn't believe. Um, I like for me, that's another thing that I found out for me personally was hurtful to my soul and to my kids to try to force that relationship, right? It was
Yeah.
like if I found out for me, it would be better for me to believe with somebody or to be with somebody that if I wanted to be with somebody that they should also be they are at least as a minimum should believe too. I
Yeah.
didn't always feel that way because for me I thought I would be more open minded and accepting, but it's not just that. It got to the point where there's opposition for a reason, right? Like there's just a point where you can't work it because there's just an infinite wall there of like
Right.
you can't work through that value. They have a completely different value.
Right.
And so for me, like that for me ended up turning to a conflict. So like I didn't want to force them to that same thing, like, hey, you need to believe in God. I would suggest it. Um, but at the same time, don't mock me for my belief, right? Like they would
Right.
mock me for believing, oh, that's so stupid, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I don't do that for you when you don't believe, right?
Yeah. Right.
So like it was just different. So like with the kids, sometimes they had questions too, like mostly my oldest. My oldest was really good at questioning. Um
Okay.
he's really good at questioning actually. Um like he knew that like I didn't quite I got to a point in my life where I wasn't so Christian, but we went to church together with my aunt who really is. And we went to the church and they happened to talk about like really bashing tarot cards, right? And stuff like that and talking about
Oh.
right? And I have
Yeah.
and it happened
Yeah.
to be just the one time that I brought my kids and we were talking like and I have them right I literally have them right here, right? And my kids, they're much more accepting, right? They know that for me that is just it's a tool, it's a divination tool, right? For them, but for them, he was like, so he's like, wow, how'd that make you feel, Dad? Like after the guy was preaching, because he was just
Oh
going on and
no.
on and on and on about hating like these people on tarot cards and so, like be loving of your neighbor, but these guys,
Right.
right? Basically. And it's just at that point, even when the kids are kind of like getting like that's
Toxic.
absurd, right? That like I don't. Why am I coming here? I don't want to come to this church, right? So that's
Right.
why I respect them. I'm like, okay, right? Like you don't have to come. I probably won't come either, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm with you,
Yeah.
but
Right.
right? So I'm like, you are not wrong about this. So
Right.
so these are the conversations that like we have or have had, right? And I like my youngest, he's got a friend now who does believe. And
Okay.
it's gotten to the point where like for me, because I've been disconnected with my kids, I pray, I write, and because I believe in manifestation and stuff like that, I hope, right? The put that send that like you were talking about before, sending that energy out. Like I truly believe that everybody has a sort of like a guardian angel watching
Oh,
to a
yeah,
degree.
me too. Yep.
And
Yep.
for me, I ask mine or at least send the energy out to for their guardian angel to work with them or work through them, right? Even it's I don't expect immediate result, but I hope that at least I ask for their protection, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
at
Always.
least
Yes.
to be guided. And what I found unique is like when I started doing that, that's when Alex started reaching out. He and then he
Okay.
found he met and then he met this kid who believes in God, and then he started having more conversation. And now that they're getting older, they're having more questions, right? And so as long as
Mm-hmm.
that's happening in the background without me knowing, that I find that beautiful. Like I find that's great. At least it's working at some sort of level that they're questioning. I want them to be able to
Right.
question, right? Like whatever decision that they end up coming to and deciding, if they end up deciding, I don't want to believe in God because God destroys babies. Okay, cool. That's sure, right?
Solid reason.
Right? At the same
Right.
time, you know, like I know for me, I got to a point where there's almost nothing nobody can do that can take away my faith anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because there's just so
Right.
much evidence to me that it's not proof, right? But it's evidence that things keep happening in a way outside of some sort of paranormal or extraordinary circumstance that just happens to work in a way that sometimes works out, even though it's fucked up sometimes, it still does.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
it's weird. And I know that like once the most resistance I've ever had in my life was the times that I didn't believe. Once I found in my life that I started leaning more into trust, that force is an evident part of my life, then things started flowing a lot better. I noticed, at least in my own energy, not necessarily in other people around me. Sometimes that gets more chaotic because you become more aligned. But I know that for me, at least with that's the evidence, or at least some of my experiences with it. It might not be universal, but I just know in my bubble, that's what happens. So,
Yeah.
so I don't know. But I know for my kids, you know, I hope, you know, any good parent would hope that if you're a believer of anything, that you would want your children to find some sort of value or faith in something, you know, outside themselves, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
otherwise, if you just believe in yourself, you just think you're God, and
You don't want that.
you can become very arrogant and self-centered. It's very dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Yeah.
So.
That's why pride's a great sin.
Yep.
So.
Yep. On that note. All right. Well, Shaun, I really appreciate it. This is great. I love having these conversations. Nothing irritates me more than small talk and just talking about nonsense, because you know, Deshaun and I, this is some real shit. So,
Oh yeah.
then this is what life's all about. So again, thank you, Shaun, for coming on. I'm sure it won't be the last time. So
I would love that. Thank you. I appreciate this. And it's great seeing you again.
Well,
I hope everything works. Seriously. Let me know. Keep me updated.
Thanks. Will do.
Sure.
See you guys.
See you.